Today, as I said, speaking about AI, speaking about what's actually going on in the market. We'll be talking a bit about today about what an AI-enabled workplace is looking like. We will start to talk about some of the issues and some of the problems that we're starting to see, and then how you might go about addressing those. Cam, I'll ask you to try and keep me on track. We've got an hour. I'm going to try and keep the talk to about 25 minutes or half an hour, and then leave a fair amount of time at the end for questions. Because normally it sort of drives a bit of conversation.
I'll be the timekeeper.
For those who don't know me, yeah, been alive, well, live as it's now known for a very long time. But I do quite a lot in the area of AI. So I do a lot of advising for enterprise and government organizations. I teach digital and AI transformation at Deakin as part of the executive MBA there, and do a lot of corporate training through Deakin as well. Have done a lot of writing. I invest in a few AI startups and sit on some boards of AI startups and as well. And as well as that, I sit on the YMCA Victoria board and have become part of a special advisor group to YMCA Global. So looking at how AI is adopted across in excess of 100,000 organization, sort of YMCA organizations across the world, and what it means for the community of 65 million uh, people, particularly young people that we deal with around the world. Also do a fair amount of work with Public Service Network and part of the Future Government Institute. So looking at where the intersection of the public service and emerging technology, in particular AI, and how that is starting to shape public policy and what it may do to society in general. For those who want to know a bit more about Alyve, we're a technology consultancy. Essentially, think about it as a management consultancy with a technology lens. We don't have a massive bank of developers and so on, but we do have people with great technical and strategic depth, and so we do a lot of that work around the analysis, strategy, transformation, change management, project management, business alignment, and then of course AI strategy development and implementation. And these are the types of clients that we work with. But we've been running for a long time, so our client bank is quite broad. So what's actually happening out in the market? Obviously we've heard a lot of things around AI over the last few years, some good, some bad, and you know I'd say it's definitely too early to say that we're at a stage where best practice is really well defined, but we're definitely at a stage where patterns are starting to emerge, and those patterns are starting to be pretty clear about what is happening and what needs to happen. What we're seeing though is that generative AI is rapidly reshaping workplaces, and there's a lot of organizations that are getting right, and those organizations are seeing really significant returns. When I say significant returns, the ones that get it right, and we'll talk about what right means, they're getting productivity returns in the range of 30 to 40%, and they normally get revenue increases, and more often than not, the staff grows rather than shrinks. Um, Now, there's a lot of organizations, there's more organizations who aren't getting it right. And the reason they're not getting it right is because they're fundamentally treating this as a technology problem. And for a couple of reasons, I think it's really important to understand that this particular technology, unlike other technologies, is very much not a technology problem. Yes, there's technology parts to it. Yes, we need security, we need to think about data, and we need to think about infrastructure and those sort of things. But the value equation is none of those things. The value equation is very much a human element. If you look at some of the data out in the market, and there's the bottom one here I'd get you to focus on, which is a great report that came out from Harvard Business School towards the end of last year. And it was talking about how it was looking at generative AI adoption across organizations, and it was doing a study across over a 12-month period. And it was showing that skilled workers' performance, who the ones who were using generative AI, their performance was nearly 40% above the workers who weren't using it. So that's really significant. We're talking in the range of essentially 2 days of effort a week is essentially being attained by by for each staff member by those organizations, which is of course you know you can call that efficiency, you can call it all different things, but in the end, that's additional capacity. And I think that's the really, really important element to focus on here, which is the mindset of thinking, how do I use AI to get cost out of the business? Look, you probably will be able to get cost out of the business, but that mindset can be incredibly, incredibly limiting and take take you down a direction which is not actually going to get you the outcomes that you want. Whereas if your mindset is, how can we add 20 to 30 or 40% in this case capacity to our organization without having to spend the money? Like what more does that allow us to do? How much more does it allow us to, how does it allow us to achieve our strategy and our direction and have the impact on our market and our customers that we really want to have? That's a very different mindset. And I think that mindset is far more valuable when it comes to a technology like AI than has done with previous technologies. Now, the business impact, if that's done right, um, is you get incredibly empowered workforce, and you get operational excellence and sustainable innovation. So those kind of three things I sort of highlight as because these are strategic things. These are things that you want. You want your workforce to be empowered. You want your workforce to be thinking, how can I have a greater impact on the organization strategy? You want quality to be going up. You want operational excellence, and you want sustainable innovation. On the flip side of that, what you don't want is you don't want people to be so focused on efficiency that they're using AI to do tasks or produce documents as quickly as possible and moving on to the next thing. I might sound really attractive, but if you play it out, I mean, what's going to happen? And we've seen this directly, and and there's been a lot of evidence of this in the media as well. So, organizations that go down that path of efficiency, 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 and thinking about AI uh, from a cost out perspective or automation perspective, or they're putting incentives in place for their team to be to producing as much as possible. You play that out over a period of time, and behaviors basically, what starts to happen is that people are producing lots of documents as quickly as possible, but aren't spending time learning what's in the document. And so, over time, what happens is they spend more documents, they create more documents. They learn less about what they're actually creating. Other people are, not even reading those documents. They're using AI to read it and produce the next thing. And your business is creating lots and lots and lots and lots of content that nobody understands. And as a result, your business becomes efficiently irrelevant. You're producing a lot of stuff that has exactly zero impact on the market. Whereas, if you start focusing on operational excellence and sustainable innovation, it's all about producing quality. The speed and productivity side of it is actually how do we get the highest quality outcome as quickly as possible, and use our work and think about AI and our people together to be able to produce that kind of outcome. The other thing that's emerging in terms of patterns is that, and I actually saw this today. I was working with an organization today where exactly these things came out. Where we do a survey across the organization and sort of test for what people are concerned about and worried about, and the things that drive success. And it's almost the same every single time. We're ensuring security and privacy. Yes, there's a bit of technical stuff there, but really what that is about the people saying, nobody wants to use a technology if they think that the technology is going to put themselves or the business at risk. So that can really inhibit adoption. Um, Prioritizing change management and training, particularly the mindset. So to helping people develop an AI mindset so they understand how to use these tools in increasingly creative ways to produce increasingly higher quality outcomes. Executive level commitment and support. Now, I'm not talking about just the CIO here. I'm talking the whole executive team. That's really, really critical. So it's not, so if somebody, grabs a CEO or a CFO in the corner and says, in the hallway and says, so what's all the stuff with AI? They don't just turn around and go, oh, go talk to the CIO. Like every single leader in the organization needs to have a story about why it's important to the business. And then really critically, equitable access. So, you know, we've heard a lot about organizations that have tried to, go, well, AI is expensive, so we're only going to give it to this small group of people who are going to test it. And that's okay, from a cost control perspective. But what actually ends up happening is that unless there is good controls in place inside the organization, and good support for people to be able to experiment in their own way, then those people who get access to the tools can start to scream ahead. All of a sudden, you get kind of the haves and the have-nots starting to happen. Those people going, well, they're getting access to all this, and I'm not. Well, and then you either get a cultural rift, or you get people going off and just using the tools in their own way, which then can create a lot of other risks. So making sure that you have a way for everybody across the organization to be able to access the tools in some shape or form, licensed or not. The other thing that's happening, that when we start thinking about kind of the broader impact is, if we look at the World Economic Forum, and there's been versions of this analysis done by PwC and McKinsey and so on, which are similar kinds of numbers. But we're talking, AI is going to contribute approximately, 16 trillion American dollars to the global economy in the next 5 years. Now, we're not going to get that level of value um, without job growth and job creation. So we don't know what that all looks like just yet, but what we know is that, a lot of the jobs of tomorrow don't currently exist. And they're going to be AI centric as it starts to evolve. The other element as we see is that AI is really forcing businesses to face hard questions. We see this quite a lot with organizations we work with, where the problems they may have been kicking down the road for maybe 10 years. The problem's clear. They can see where the issue is, and a combination of market dynamics and sort of emerging technology has sort of made those problems materialize. But the pace of change that AI is bringing is now making that problem of tomorrow become a today problem. And what's clear is, if you don't have a very clear plan, and you're trying to use AI to just speed up current processes, what can end up happening is you can start running really, really fast in the wrong direction. So it's really important to understand that broader context, not just how do I save a little bit of money, but how do we use this tool set in really strategic ways. Of course, there are problems, and AI is sort of unlike other technology from that perspective. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions in the market. About job replacement and bias, and the fact that they think that it's too technical. And look, I mean, when you start building AI tools or AI agents, it can get very technical very quickly. But a lot of that immediate value is really at the level of change management training and organizational alignment. There's a huge amount to be achieved by just making sure that everybody's got a shared approach and understanding, and people aren't hiding inside the organization pretending that they're not using AI, that it's become part of the culture of the way that we do things. So information is shared, learning becomes part of the culture, and everybody's trying to work together to try and find new and interesting ways to make this technology valuable for the business. Um, we have got a huge amount of job shift happening. Like in the next couple of years, a quarter of the jobs around the world are going to start to shift and change because of AI. And at that task level, so that's the job level. At the task level, 34% of tasks are sort of starting to become automated or semi-automated now, and a lot of organizations are expecting that to go up over the next couple of years too, quite significantly. We've also got, equity and human impact issues. As I said, a lot of the jobs that existed now didn't exist, sort of, not so long ago. We've got a reskilling imperative. We've got a lot of people who need to be reskilled and be able to use this technology very quickly, which creates a challenge. We've got, equity issues where there's some of the job displacement and impact is going to disproportionately impact female over males, and then it's and then there's sort of the skills that you need to develop. And there's a belief in the market that a lot of the skills that need to be developed around AI are actually technical skills but really when you start to look at it and work at how to get the most out of AI, it's actually the really intrinsically human skills that you need to hone in on and work with. You just need to view them through the lens of AI and work out how to work with AI tools and groups of people with AI tools to be, leverage those human skills more effectively. And then we've got, of course, headlines like this, where MIT came out and said, it was well, they didn't actually say this, but this is a headline that came out of that report that 95% of generative AI pilots at companies are failing. And that it wasn't completely inaccurate. There is an element of that. What wasn't showing is it's saying that these are the top down use cases where people at the top were trying to identify a use case that they think was going to be the silver bullet that changes the way the business works. They were viewing this implementation of AI the same way they viewed, the selection and implementation of a CRM or a finance system or an ERP or something like that. And this is not that. If you think about this as a business leader, you're asking every single one of your team to essentially pick up this new technology, understand how to work with it, rethink the way they work, and over time, they're going to rethink the nature of work itself. And so, that is inherently cultural. And so yeah, so that top down, that kind of overly autocratic kind of approach is not going to work with this kind of technology. It really has to, it can be top down budget, top down kind of controls, top down vision and strategy, but it has to be bottom up use cases. That's where the value is. And again, if you look at the data that comes out of Harvard and MIT and Stanford looking at adoption, that that sort of proves out almost every single time. And my perspective on that, so it's deterministic. The people are bringing this deterministic mindset. They're thinking about AI the same way they thought about automation. Map out a process, identify whether the technology has an impact, and then we'll implement it. And that's where it doesn't work because AI is not deterministic. AI is not like other bits of software. You put in data, it gets processed, and you get a very predictable, precise, exactly the same answer out every single time. AI is not that. It's probabilistic. And so, as I said, it's the equivalent of bringing a knife to the gunfight. You're woefully, woefully underprepared if your viewpoint is you're going to be viewing AI through a deterministic or, sort of automation lens. And as I said, like, that from our perspective and what we're seeing with organizations is going, their starting point is the cost reduction lens. It's the worst possible way to view AI. It, you absolutely get cost reductions from it. Don't get me wrong. Like it's not that that shouldn't be one of the goals, but that is the myopic focus and lens can create exactly the wrong behaviors, incentives, and identify the wrong kinds of use cases that will actually have the impact in the organization that you want. And that, our perspective on that is, look, this is not actually a tech upgrade at all. In many cases, yes, the tech available, but you know, this is a culture upgrade. This is an upgrade into the way the world and the way your organization operates, the nature of work, and the nature of the way that we work, and the way that we interface with technology broadly. And that's impact. Like society over, for as long as for as long as history, forever and a day, our society has been shaped by the tools that we create. Everything from fire you know to the industrial age to electricity to rail to, I mean, even the shape of our cities is based on the fact that we invented the car. So we couldn't imagine a world now without the internet and without to a certain degree social media. And this is exactly where we're heading with AI. We won't be able to imagine what the world is like without it when it becomes normalized. But at the moment, we're in the messy early phase where it's very far from normalized. We're just learning, and there's a lot of businesses starting and growing. At some point, we will hit the consolidation and ubiquity phase, but we're not there yet. So what do we do? Well, Think about human plus AI as the only way to create value. Don't think about AI versus human. Don't think about, don't think about it as a competition. It's the two things coming together. That's where the real value lies. Think about that mindset, skill set, tool set approach in that order to help your organization and your team develop an AI mindset. So, how do I think about this? How do I work with this? Why is this technology different? Why should I not treat AI the same way I treat Google, or why should I not think about it as an add-on to Word or Excel or something like that? Like it's different. Then start developing the skills that you need to be able to master AI, and work with it. And that it could be technology agnostic. It's really just how to work with this technology set broadly. And then finally, then the more practical, then how do we then take this mindset and skill set and implement it with our tool set of choice, with inside your organization? And for God, and absolutely stop it with the automation. Yeah, like yeah, absolutely. Well, there's automation opportunities, but that myopic focus on map out a process and try and use AI to automate it, it's not going to work. It's not going to work the way that you would hope. What you will do as your organization creates a mindset and you get maturity is that you will identify ways of redesigning processes with AI at the core, which will produce really high valuable and automated outcomes. But it's a different kind of approach than just the kind of the basic kind of automation that existed a few years ago. And I think one of the other elements is just explore the really tricky leadership questions. Um, like if if all of our people are being asked to rethink the nature of work and how work, well, that's a leadership issue. Like, how do we manage our way through that? If if as we're hearing over and over again that AI agents are going to start to mature really quickly, and most people are going to be working with AI agents, um, what does it mean when every single person in your business has to manage a team of AI agents? What does it mean when you're going out to hire somebody to come into the business, and they have been working with, their chosen AI suite for such a long time that they've become really good at using it, but it's become really good at understanding them. Essentially, the person and the technology has co-evolved. And if you want to be able to get that same kind of impact that person has, you're not going to have to onboard them. You're going to have to onboard their technology into your business. That's a really tricky. It's a technical issue, but it's a very tricky leadership issue as well. Like there's IP issues and all sorts of things that go along with it. So some final thoughts. Look, AI is absolutely reshaping the world of work. There's no doubt about it. Um, it's not. Yeah, it's not going to slow down. That's for sure. It's picking up pace enormously. Sometimes we don't see just exactly how fast things are moving. But for context, a little over a year ago, ChatGPT couldn't do basic maths. It didn't know it couldn't do its three times tables. It's now able to do incredibly, incredibly advanced maths and do physics. So, it's moving incredibly, incredibly fast. And waiting for things to slow down like that's not a thing. um you know that old saying, the pace of change has never been this fast, and it's never going to be this slow again. Has never been more true. Things are not going to be slowing down. So if you're waiting for things to normalize and you're waiting for things to just settle a bit before you sort of think about what to do with AI, you're not doing yourself any favors. Absolutely not. And really critically, we need to stay focused on amplifying human potential. This, you know, Getting really good at using AI broadly is more akin to learning how to paint than it is learning how to use Excel. The more creative you are with the way you prompt it and the way you think about creating processes with AI at the corner, you think about collaborative exercises with multiple people plus AI at the center. The more creative ways that you think of using this technology, the more value you get out of it. Um, and that's where that human potential piece comes into play. We have a chance, we have. I would do a lot of work, as you said, do the work with YMCA Global and do work with schools and spending a lot of time talking about, how this impacts young people. And this, we have this opportunity. This technology is so incredibly powerful. We have the ability to create this technology which could give young people agency and a voice and give them the chance to have an impact in the world like it's like we've never seen before. Or we couldn't. And we we're at this point now where you know the future is not it's not deterministic, and it doesn't exist yet. It's the kind of the result of the decisions we make today. And I think when it comes to this technology, it's incredibly exciting. It's also it's an incredibly powerful tool. It's sort of one thing I like to say a lot is every hammer ever built, every hammer ever created could build a house and murder your neighbor. It all depends on how you swing it. And I'm really hoping that we swing this particular tool in the right way.